Have you ever asked, why is this happening to me? That quiet question we whisper at 3 a.m. when the pain returns and no one is watching. But what if your suffering isn't a punishment? What if it's not random, not meaningless? What if pain is a message, not from the world, but from within? In this episode of Inner Moonlight, we go beneath the surface. We won't numb it. We won't escape it. We'll translate it through the wisdom of the Dharma, because what hurts us can also awaken us. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let's begin. Have you ever noticed how we flinch at pain, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually? How the mere appearance of suffering in our lives feels like an unwanted visitor, one we try to silence, avoid, distract, or numb. And yet, it keeps returning, in different forms, through different faces, under different circumstances. But what if suffering is not an enemy to be defeated, but a messenger we keep misreading? In Buddhist thought, the presence of suffering is not a mistake in the system. It is the system, dukkha, the first noble truth, not as fatalism, but as realism. The Buddha did not offer enlightenment as a path away from suffering. He offered it through suffering, because only what has been deeply touched by pain is ready to awaken. We tend to treat suffering like a glitch, like something has gone wrong in our lives. The job fell apart, the lover left, the dream crumbled. So we ask, why is this happening to me? But Buddhism asks instead, what is this trying to reveal? That's a radical shift, one that moves us from victimhood to vision. The hidden message behind suffering is not always easy to read. Sometimes it comes wrapped in silence or in chaos. Sometimes it looks like loneliness or grief or the ache of meaninglessness. But it's not meaningless. It's an invitation, a pull inward, a soft but persistent voice whispering, look here, this is where it hurts. This is where you're still holding on. We don't suffer just because things end. We suffer because we expected them not to. We suffer because we thought we were owed a happy ending. But nothing in nature clings, not trees to their leaves, not rivers to their water. Why then do we cling to what is already slipping through our fingers? Perhaps because we haven't yet understood that the pain is not trying to destroy us. It's trying to show us something. That something inside is still unresolved, still attached, still wrapped in illusion, the illusion of permanence, the illusion of control, the illusion of ownership. Suffering is a spiritual MRI. It scans the hidden fractures of the soul. It shows us where we are still asleep, and in doing so, it does not condemn, it illuminates. There's a Zen saying, the obstacle is the path, not around it, not over it, through it. Because the very thing that breaks our hearts open is often the thing that brings us closest to truth. And truth, in the Buddhist sense, is not found in intellectual clarity, but in the raw, unfiltered presence of this moment, in the courage to feel what hurts, in the willingness to bow before what we cannot change, in the quiet strength it takes to remain soft in a world that keeps trying to harden us. So, maybe the question is not how to make the suffering stop, but how to meet it with curiosity instead of fear, with awareness instead of resistance, with tenderness instead of blame. What if the pain is not a punishment, but a passage, What if it is not a sign that life is against us, but that life is waking us up? And so, the Dharma whispers, this too is part of the path. Why does suffering linger long after the event that caused it has passed? A relationship ends, yet the ache persists. A dream dissolves, yet the disappointment hardens into bitterness. Someone says a single cruel sentence, and days later it still echoes in the mind like a wound replaying its own sting. According to the Buddha, the answer is simple, though not always easy to accept. We cling. We do not suffer merely because things hurt. We suffer because we hold on to them, even when they're already gone. This clinging takes many forms. Some of it is obvious, holding on to a person, a job, a future we imagined. But much of it is subtle. We cling to our identity, to the stories we've told ourselves about who we are. We cling to how we thought life should go. And that gap between what we expected and what is, that is where suffering blooms. There is a word in Pali, upadana, which means attachment, grasping, fuel. It is the fuel of the fire that burns us, and yet we keep feeding it, because we believe unconsciously that holding on will bring back what we lost, that if we analyze it more, text them one more time, punish ourselves a little longer, we will feel better. But Buddhism says the opposite. The tighter we grip, the more we suffer. The more we try to force life to match our script, the more disappointed we become. Because life, like breath, cannot be held. It must be let go, over and over again. The river of time is always moving, and yet we keep trying to build dams out of memory, resentment, nostalgia. We want the past to stay. We want people to remain who they were. We want our bodies, our dreams, our comfort to pause, freeze, obey. But nothing in this world obeys attachment. Everything obeys change. So the very root of emotional exhaustion, the reason why some wounds never seem to heal, is because we refuse to release what was never meant to stay. And this isn't a failure, it's human. We all cling to something, a version of love, a role we've outgrown, a sense of control. But when we begin to notice the cost, how our grip keeps us stuck, how our expectations poison the present, we're offered a choice. Let go, not with violence, not by suppressing emotions, but by seeing clearly. To see clearly is to understand that clinging to what must go is like holding on to a burning rope. The longer we grip it, the deeper the burn. The pain doesn't mean we are cursed. It means we are resisting the truth. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "From craving springs grief, from craving springs fear. For him who is wholly free from craving, there is no grief. Whence fear?" This freedom from craving is not indifference. It's clarity. It's the kind of calm that comes not from detachment, but from non-grasping. It's standing in the storm without needing to own the wind. And once we taste this clarity, even for a moment, we begin to realize peace does not come from holding on. It comes from having the courage to let go, even if we don't know what comes next. Even if it hurts, even if it leaves us with nothing but empty hands, because empty hands can finally receive. What if suffering isn't a detour, but the path itself? Most of us treat pain as something to escape. We distract ourselves, we numb, we analyze endlessly, or we spiritualize it too soon, using platitudes to avoid feeling what's raw. But Buddhism offers another way, not to bypass suffering, but to sit inside it long enough to hear what it's trying to say. Because buried beneath every wound is a teaching. not a punishment, not a curse, but a Dharma message written in the language of heartbreak, fear, and loss. If we slow down, listen carefully, and open our hearts, even while they ache, we may find that our deepest suffering contains our deepest invitation to awaken. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha didn't say, "Avoid pain." He said, "Understand it." That's the first step, to turn toward our suffering instead of running from it, to look it in the eye and say, "I'm listening." When we do this, something extraordinary happens. The pain begins to reveal its shape, not just what hurts, but why. We start to see how we constructed our suffering, not to blame ourselves, but to reclaim our power. The grief over a relationship, for instance, may reveal a lifelong pattern of seeking validation. The burnout from work may point to a wound of unworthiness. The loneliness may not be about others at all, but about our own disconnection from presence. This kind of insight doesn't come from thinking more. It comes from feeling more. Not in the sense of emotional overwhelm, but of deep presence. There is a saying in Zen, when the student is ready, the pain becomes the teacher. To be ready means to stop resisting, to sit in the discomfort, not to wallow, but to witness. This is where mindfulness becomes more than a technique. It becomes a radical act of self-compassion. Instead of labeling the pain as wrong, we get curious. What is this? What belief is it pointing to? What story am I replaying? And slowly, suffering loses its sharpness. Not because the circumstances change, but because the relationship to pain changes. We stop being the victim of it and become the observer of it. We stop trying to make it disappear and begin to learn from it. In this space, transformation begins. A heartbreak that once felt unbearable now becomes the doorway to deeper self-worth. A period of depression becomes the compost for a more honest life. A betrayal becomes the beginning of boundaries. Suffering, when met with awareness, ripens into wisdom. This is not poetic optimism. It is psychological and spiritual truth. Every mystic tradition echoes it. In Christianity, the wound is where the light enters. In Rumi, don't turn away. Keep your gaze on the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you. In the Pali Canon, as a lotus rises from the mud, so does the awakened one rise from suffering. But to rise, we must stay rooted long enough to feel. We must trust that suffering is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new one, written not by control, but by clarity. Not by force, but by surrender. Not by forgetting what happened, but by remembering who we are in the face of it. So the next time suffering visits, don't ask only, how do I make this stop? Ask instead, what is this showing me? Because pain may not leave when asked, but it will soften when welcomed. And what once felt like a weight dragging us down may, in time, become the very ground on which our awakening stands. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood teachings on the spiritual path. We often hear it used as a slogan, just let it go, as if pain were a coat to shrug off, as if heartbreak could be peeled away like an old sticker. But anyone who's lived through real loss, betrayal, or disappointment knows the truth. Letting go is not one act. It's a process. A slow, uneven, sometimes painful peeling away of everything we once clung to for safety. And in that, it is not weakness. It is one of the most courageous things we can do. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, not because love is wrong, but because clinging is. We confuse possession with connection, control with care, permanence with peace. And when the things or people we rely on inevitably shift, we feel abandoned, not just by them, but by the ground beneath us. But here's the truth. Nothing real can be lost. What disappears was never truly ours to begin with. The process of letting go begins not with the hand, but with the mind. With the recognition that clinging does not preserve love, it chokes it. That holding on does not keep things safe. It freezes them in fear that the more we grip, the more we bleed. So what does real letting go look like? It looks like breathing into the ache instead of trying to escape it. It looks like saying, I still care, but I release my need to control. It looks like standing at the threshold of an old life and choosing not to carry every piece of it into the new one. It is the decision to stop reliving the story, to stop rehearsing the what-ifs and the what-should-have-beens, to stop returning like a ghost to the moment of impact, hoping this time it might change. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean erasing the love or pretending the wound was never there. It means honoring what was, without making it the prison of what is. One Zen metaphor speaks to this. A monk crossing a river carries a woman on his back, helping her across the rushing water. Hours later, another monk asks, "Why did you do that? We are not supposed to touch women." The monk replies, "I left her at the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" We all carry people, moments, regrets, long after they've passed. We replay old arguments, reread old messages, revisit old wounds. But the Dharma asks, what are we still carrying that we no longer need? What weight has become habit, not necessity? To let go is to trust that what is meant for us will not need to be gripped tightly. That love, if real, does not demand our imprisonment. That freedom, far from being the absence of feeling, is the full embrace of impermanence. It may hurt, it will take time, but every step we take away from clinging is a step toward peace. And in that peace, we begin to hear the quiet voice underneath the noise, the one that says, "This pain is not who you are. This story is not where you end. There is life waiting for you beyond this." To let go is not to give up. It is to give in to the deeper wisdom, the quiet strength, and the sacred unfolding of what comes next. Peace doesn't arrive like a thunderclap. It doesn't walk in through the front door with fanfare. It emerges slowly, like mist rising off a river at dawn, unannounced, almost unnoticed, until we realize the chaos has stopped. But this stillness is not silence. It is not numbness. It is not giving up. It is the soft strength that comes after the fire has burned through every last illusion. Suffering, in Buddhist teaching, is not the enemy. It is the invitation. It shows us where we're still holding on, where we've confused identity with memory, emotion with truth, control with love. And through that recognition, the door to stillness opens. It begins in the body, often before the mind catches up. A deep breath that doesn't rush out. A moment of calm between old thoughts. A decision to respond gently where once we would have exploded. These are the first signs. Something has shifted. We are no longer possessed by the storm. We are watching it pass. Because here's the secret. We don't have to defeat suffering. We only have to stop fueling it. When pain arises, the ego wants to do something. Fix, resist, retaliate. But stillness invites another path. Witnessing. It says, let it be, let it rise, let it fall. No pushing, no pulling, just presence. And in that presence, a miracle occurs. Suffering becomes just another wave. Not a tsunami, not a threat, just a wave passing through. No longer personalized, no longer weaponized, just energy, just life, just Dharma in motion. This is why the Buddha did not promise a life without suffering. He promised freedom within suffering. Liberation that doesn't depend on changing the world, but on changing the way we meet it. Stillness is not passivity. It's power under control. It's knowing that peace is not what happens when nothing disturbs us, but what remains even when everything does. So we return again and again to that sacred pause. We choose not to react. We rest in awareness. We feel the pain without becoming the pain. We feel the fear without obeying it. And over time, we come to realize peace is not something we find. It is something we remember, because it was never gone. It was simply buried beneath all the noise, all the stories, all the struggles we thought we had to fight. But when we stop clinging, when we stop running, when we stop trying to be someone or get somewhere, what's left? Stillness. And in that stillness, there is no battle left to win, no validation to earn, no enemy to defeat, only breath, only presence, only the sacred hum of being alive. So if the world still hurts, let it. If the ache remains, honor it. But don't let it steal what is already yours, the quiet, radiant peace of a mind that no longer fights with life. This is the highest revenge, not anger, not bitterness, not cold indifference, but stillness. A stillness so complete, so rooted, that nothing outside can shake it. A peace that doesn't need applause, doesn't seek approval, doesn't fear endings, just breath, and the next moment, just now, and the freedom to be fully within it. Let that be enough. In the end, what hurts us is not just what happens, but our refusal to let it move through. Like clenched fists in a river, we try to hold on. But peace comes when we open the hand, when we stop grasping, stop gripping, stop resisting. So if the world has wounded you, as it has wounded all of us, walk on. Not harder, not colder, but softer, wiser, lighter. Stillness is not far. It's just beneath the noise. You are already walking toward it. Let the Dharma carry you the rest of the way.